Do you want a mini PC with the highest end mobile chip that Intel makes in 2025? The Intel Core Ultra 9 285H. This guy, the GMKtek Evo-T1, it's got that chip for you. It's got 3 blazing fast NVMe slots, Oculink for external PCIe connectivity, Thunderbolt 4, dual 2.5 gig Ethernet, HDMI DisplayPort, tons of other stuff, and it's in a pretty small form factor with good cooling. So if you're interested in seeing my review of this, then come along on this adventure. Little disclosure here, GMKtek sent me this unit for review. No money changed hands, and they won't see the review until you do. So let's get started. So I got the box here. Take a look what we got. It's got some paperwork, probably don't need that, accessories, and the unit itself. So this guy promises an Intel Core Ultra 9. Remember back when Intel named things in like a simple way? It's like the generation, and then like the family, like 13, 900, 13th gen, 9th family. Now we got this like Core Ultra AI bullshit. But anyway, on the front, we've got power button and a reset button. 3 USB Type A, Type C, and headphone jack. On the back, I got power, another headphone jack, USB 4, DisplayPort, HDMI, Oculink, USB, and dual Ethernet, which it warns me that Windows will do updates, and yeah. Also warns me not to unplug Oculink while we're plugged into power, which is good advice. Let's see what we got for accessories. We got a power brick. Let's see, what do we got for this guy? 19 volt, 7.8 amp, 148 watts. That's a lot of power. And how about the other accessory box? Oh, they sent me a European cable. How nice of them. 2 Mickey Mouse ears. And HDMI and mounting bracket. So for the first boot, I got my USB flash drive with Ubuntu on it. Got HDMI capture and keyboard and mouse simulation. So let's hook this guy up. HDMI, USB 2, and I'll put him on the front. And of course, power. So let's get this guy booted up. So I'm going to do benchmarking later on in the video in Windows, but first I want to figure out what all the I/O bandwidth is. So a lot of these mini PCs have a lot of slots for M.2. We're not always sure what their bandwidth or lane count is. I want to get that settled because I think that's very important information for you guys. So I'm going to boot up Linux and we're going to test it out. So escape key got me in the BIOS. And go over here and just say boot UEFI. There we go. There we go, easy for you guys to see. First up, USB. Looks like we have AX201 Bluetooth, so that's the Wi-Fi 6. Intel has the AX200, 201. Those are both Wi-Fi 6, so 5 GHz, 2.4 GHz. This is not 6E, which would be the 210, 211, but it's fine. Just be aware this is not 6 GHz Wi-Fi, but it's still a good Wi-Fi ASIC. And you get PCI, shows up as having Thunderbolt 4, Meteor Lake NPU, we're going to do some AI stuff, and some Realtek RTL 8125 2.5 gig Ethernet. We also have 1 Micron Technology NVMe SSD, so let's see how many lanes we have for that. And here we go, Micron Technology NVMe. It is running at PCIe Gen 4 by 4 lanes. So built-in SSD, Gen 4 by 4, full support, excellent. Now there's 2 other NVMe slots in this thing, so I'm going to rotate the drive through all those different slots and we'll try it again. And slot 2, 16 gig transfers by 4 lanes, so Gen 4, perfect. And the third slot is also 16 gig transfers by 4 lanes. So this guy isn't exactly designed to be a NAS with 3 M.2s, which is still enough for a pretty decent mini server. They're all running at Gen 4 by 4, which is blazing fast, good for them. And they don't have to tell us like which slot is the fast slot. So in a lot of mini PCs I review, only one of the slots gets the full 4 lanes. Some of them even have the rest of the slots at Gen 3 by 1, which is really slow. But these guys are using the Intel Core Ultra 9 285H. Gosh, Intel. And anyway, Intel's docs say this guy has 1 Gen 5 by 8 lane port. It has 3 Gen 4 by 4 lane ports. and it has 8 more ports that can be Gen 1 or Gen 2. So our 8 ports are going to be used for things like Wi-Fi, 2.5 gig Ethernet. The Gen 3x4 lanes, Gen 4x4 lanes, those are going to be our 3 M.2s, which makes perfect sense. And I'm guessing the by 8 is going off the Oculink port, which is Gen 5 on the CPU. I don't know if it actually supports Gen 5 in this implementation, but that's where our highest speed lane goes. So good on these guys for making full use of everything on this chip too. One thing I could say is they could have put in faster NICs. So these are 2.5 gig. 2.5 gig is perfectly adequate, but for a chip of this speed, going to like a single 10 gig NIC I think would make a lot of sense. Like an Aquantia NIC or even an SFP Plus NIC. Probably an SFP Plus in a mini PC like this, but one RJ45 10 gig, I would rather have that than two RJ45 2.5 gigs. That's just me. Now the last feature this guy has is USB 4, also known as Thunderbolt. So in theory, I can take a high quality Thunderbolt supporting cable and plug this guy, aside from all my mess here, into my laptop, and I'll just get an Ethernet link between my laptop and my mini PC over Thunderbolt. So Mac OS and Windows will automatically set that up. Linux will automatically set that up if the other side of the connection is Mac OS or Windows. If both sides are Linux, you can mod probe a driver and it'll come right up. So I should be able to just plug this guy right in. There we go, D-message, I got new host, Apple Inc. MacBook Air, and I got a connection established. And it looks like it's set up a link local over Thunderbolt 0. And look at that, 10 gigabits across my Thunderbolt link. That's pretty fast. So if you're the kind of person that just wants one high-speed link in your network between like your editing workstation and your NAS or something, Thunderbolt can be a low-cost option for like 10 gig plus bandwidth if you just need to connect two devices. It's also great if you have the mini PCs with them to build like a ring network or a cluster network between two of these. So if you had two of these, you wanted to cluster them, you could put Thunderbolt between them for a high-speed backbone. So with that out of the way, maybe it's a good time to open this guy up. So first thing I'll note about the construction of this is there's this piece of metal, plastic, that wraps around the outside, this silver piece here, and we have to take this off first, then we can take the case apart. There's also a little gap here, and there's air that can flow through this gap all the way around. So the fan is, I'm not sure if it's in or out, I think it's out, and that's what's cooling our SSDs through this air here. Not the CPU. The CPU air comes in from the bottom and gets blown out the back, or maybe the opposite. I think it comes in the bottom, out the back. So CPU's got its own vents back here. SSDs and everything else, RAM, have a little slot around the top and their own fan as well. One thing that tripped me up for a while, there's these 4 feet here. Now, they actually just come off like screws. But these were kind of tight for me, so I had to use a screwdriver and jam in here. And there's like a Phillips deep in there that I used to get these guys out. But we actually only have to take 3 of them out. Let's see if I can get them out without a screwdriver. I only have to take 3 of them out because the 4th one is actually not part of this. But I like the 4th one out anyway, because otherwise it'll be like bouncing around on the table with only 1 foot. So now that this is off, this piece comes off, which is purely decorative. So in there, this is the fan that cools the CPU, so it's like a laptop style blower. On the other side, this big fan here is RGB, so you get lights around the outside too. And this is what cools the other stuff. So we've got 2 little screws on each side here. Just get those out real quick. And similarly 2 on the other side. Now when I lift the cover off, the fan will still be attached. So I could just leave the cover over there, or I could unplug the fan. There's also a button here labeled fan mode, and that actually connects directly to the fan. So I actually didn't try pressing it earlier. I think it just changes the LEDs though. So here on the inside of the unit, we've got the 3 M.2 SSDs, M.2 Wi-Fi, and the 2 memory sticks. So we've got 1 crucial Micron technology, Gen 4x4 with a heatsink on it, obviously cooled by that fan over there. And let's take a look at the RAM. So here's our RAM, ADATA DDR5 5600, 32 gig SODIMM. We have 2 SODIMMs in dual channel, well actually quad channel because DDR5 is already dual channel. So DDR5 5600 each, 32 gigs, and the CPU can handle 128, but 64 gigs is enough for a lot of people. So taking a look at this side of the board, we've got 2 pulse transformers for the Ethernet, a number of other chips around. Nothing major though on this side, so I'm going to take this guy out. Now the board is loose, but be careful of the Wi-Fi antennas. So I've got a patch antenna on the rear and a patch antenna on the front. Both go into the AX201. So let's see if I can get this out. I got some EMI shielding tape here. This might not come out easily. Okay, instead of pulling it out, I'll give you guys a view down here. So we have a stack up between the CPU die, the CPU cooler, and the laptop style blower fan. So there's heat pipes that go in that direction to the cooler. So now let's do some benchmarking. So for some benchmarking, given that this guy is a mobile CPU, I started out with a mobile game benchmark, 3D Mark Night Raid. And here I got a score of 34,819. That's pretty good, pretty darn good. So given that it's clearly pretty performant, I decided to throw it to 3D Mark Time Spy. This is a discrete GPU test. It's not Time Spy Extreme at 4K, so it's just regular Time Spy. But in Time Spy I got a score of 4,327, which is also pretty good for a mobile GPU integrated graphics. Now during this test, when pegging the GPU, the system was using about 35 watts. That seems to be about the GPU's power limit. When doing the CPU test, and the CPU test is much shorter in Time Spy, it was pulling about 50 to 55 watts. So that's not quite the, what does Intel claim? Intel claims you can turbo up to like some stupidly high 115 watts on a 45 watt CPU. So Intel be wild there. But it's clearly able to hit at least the base power without thermal throttling. So thermals there, again, we're roughly in the 60 degrees Celsius range, so perfectly adequate for something like this running under load. And just to see if I could game on it, I did run the Shadow of the Tomb Raider benchmark. This was on lowest graphics settings at 1080p, and I was able to maintain 60 FPS there average, which is decent. Now that's a pretty modern game with pretty high-end specs, and this mobile CPU was able to do that. It's not just any mobile CPU though, this is like the best mobile CPU Intel makes. So it's the highest CPU of Intel's H lineup. So the only higher end mobile CPU is the desktop-based 285HX, Core Ultra 9, whatever they're calling it now. So I guess we got rid of our 13th, 14th gen and went back to 1st gen, 2nd gen for who knows what reason, but 285H, very high-end mobile CPU from Intel. And of course, if this is not enough performance for you, there is always Oculink, the ability to connect PCI Express devices with a cable. Using Oculink, you can connect an external GPU dock. I don't have one with me in Finland, but I have one back in the US, and it's super easy to use Oculink for external PCI Express. Unlike Thunderbolt, you don't need any controller chip or anything, so the docks are like dirt cheap. You just need a cable, a little breakout board, and you're on your way with a discrete GPU for this guy. There is also, of course, Thunderbolt 4, also if you want to use that for an external GPU. But why would you do that when you have Oculink? So you have options. Okay, so what do I think about this guy? GMKtek Evo-T1 AI mini PC. Well, it's pretty good. So as I said earlier, this is the highest end mobile CPU that Intel makes from their mobile silicon family. You can get a desktop silicon in a mobile package, which is the slightly higher end, but this is pretty good. This has a lot of PCI Express connectivity. These guys have broken that out into some very fast NVMe slots. 3 of them, which is more than enough for a desktop workstation. Even a high-performance workstation, you have space for like, you can get like 4 terabyte NVMe's now, so it'll be 12 terabytes of NVMe. That's a lot of NVMe. You've got Oculink for external GPU, external connectivity. If you're in any sort of application where you have specialty PCIe cards you need, but you don't want to use like a full big-on desktop, Oculink is great for that. Thunderbolt 4 is also great for high-speed connectivity, high-speed networking. I like using it for high-speed networking between systems, but you can use it for a lot of things too. We got a number of display outputs, HDMI, DisplayPort, all the good stuff. Dual 2.5 gig Ethernet. Now that's one thing that I would change. I would have done single 10 gig instead of dual 2.5 gig. I'm guessing people that use this are going to use it for workstation type things where you're not using a router, so you don't need 2 interfaces. So having one faster interface instead of 2.5 gig would make sense to me. But 2.5 gig is still plenty fine for most people. Most people are not running that kind of bandwidth at home realistically. I know they think they need to. They think they need this 25 gig internet, but it's not actually going to help you that much. Unless you're doing video editing all day, then it's a big life changer. But yeah, GMKtek T1, I like it. This is probably going to be my new desktop here in Finland, actually replacing the GMKtek that I already use as my desktop here in Finland. So these guys make great stuff. I'm very happy with these products that I've reviewed from them. The fan mode button, by the way, does change the LED color. If I click it here, there is LEDs inside. You can kind of see. You can tip it up if you... Yeah, you can't really see that, but whatever. So yeah, if you like me, I have a Discord server, link down below for that as well. If you want to give me a tip, I always greatly appreciate that. Donations are always accepted. Link down below to my Ko-fi. You can give me a tip there. If you want to follow me on Mastodon, it's kind of like the Deadbird site, but it's decentralized, Fediverse, etc. Link down below for that as well. And as always, I'll see you guys on the next adventure.